Ethan had been on countless missions before, but none like this. The planet was strange, wild, and dangerous. The sky was a deep purple with two suns shining brightly. The air had a sharp metallic smell that he couldn't quite place. His mission was supposed to be simple, just a standard patrol in the barren wilderness. But something about the place felt wrong. His team was out exploring the rocky terrain when the attack came. Out of nowhere, the ground shook, and a burst of energy shot through the air. Before Ethan could react, a blinding light struck the ground, knocking him off his feet and sending him tumbling down a steep hill. His body slammed into the jagged rocks below, and a sharp pain shot through his leg. His vision blurred and his head felt like it was going to explode. He groaned, clutching his leg, which was already swelling and turning a deep purple. He tried to get up, but the pain was too much. His arms were scraped, and the blood was already soaking into the ground. Beneath him, Ethan knew he couldn't stay here. The enemy would be on him soon. He had to find cover. But his leg refused to cooperate. Every time he tried to stand, the pain would send him falling right back to the ground. As the sun began to set, Ethan's hopes of survival were quickly fading. His radio was damaged, and there was no way of reaching his team. He was alone. Then, he saw her. A figure appeared out of the shadows. Ethan could barely make out her shape through his blurred vision, but he could tell she was not human. She had long, dark hair that flowed like water, and her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Her skin was a soft shade of green, like the leaves of a plant just before dawn. She moved gracefully toward him, her footsteps silent as she approached. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her voice soft and melodic, almost like a song. Ethan tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He only managed to grunt in pain. The strange woman knelt beside him, her movements quick and sure. She didn't seem afraid, and she didn't seem to care that he was a human. Her eyes studied his injuries, then locked onto his face with a look. That felt both comforting and unsettling at the same time. "You've been hurt badly," she murmured. "I can help you." Ethan blinked in confusion. "Who, or you?" "I am Lyra," she said, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "I'm here to heal you." Ethan didn't know what to make of her. She looked like an alien, but her touch was warm, not cold like he expected. He had heard stories of alien races that helped humans, but he didn't know if this one was friendly. Still, there was no choice. His leg was shattered, and the pain was unbearable. "Please, unbearable, please," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I don't know if I'll make it without help." Lyra's face softened. "You will. Trust me." She gently touched his leg, and a strange, soothing warmth spread through his body. Ethan flinched at first, but then the pain began to fade. His leg felt lighter, like the pressure was being lifted. "How are you doing this?" Ethan asked, his voice full of awe and confusion. Lyra didn't answer at first, but kept her hands on his leg, her fingers glowing faintly. "Healing is not just about mending the body," she said quietly. "It's about restoring balance." Ethan watched in disbelief as her hands moved over his injury, and he felt the bones shifting, the swelling reducing. Leg didn't just heal, it seemed to be rejuvenated. The pain vanished completely, and the feeling of weight on his body slowly disappeared. He could move it again, like nothing had happened. "Thank you," he said, still in shock. "But why are you helping?" "Me? I'm just a human. Aren't you scared of us?" Lyra smiled softly. "Humans are not what others say. I have watched you for some time. I know what you are capable of." Ethan didn't know what to say. He had never met an alien before, and here she was, saving his life. He wanted to ask so many questions: where she was from, why she was helping him, what her people were like. But all of that seemed less important now. The only thing that mattered was that she had saved him. "You should rest," Lyra said as she stood up. "You are still weak. I will stay with you to make sure you are safe." I'm fine now," Ethan said, trying to push himself up. He was still exhausted from the attack, but his leg felt better. He didn't feel like the same man who had been lying helpless on the ground just minutes ago. "I can move on my own." Lyra shook her head gently. "Oh, you will stay here. I will protect you." Ethan hesitated, but something about her calm presence made him feel safe, even though he had no idea who she really was. "All right," he agreed. "But I don't want to be a burden." "Or no burden," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "Rest. The night can be dangerous. We will leave at dawn." Ethan wanted to argue, but the exhaustion hit him like a wave. His body was drained, and his head still felt foggy from the pain. He closed his eyes, trusting Lyra, and allowed himself to drift into a deep, peaceful sleep. The next morning, Ethan woke to the soft sound of birds chirping. The sky outside was a pale blue, and the air smelled fresh and clean. He stretched and winced for a moment, still not used to the idea that his leg, which had been broken the day before, now felt perfectly fine. No pain, no swelling. It almost felt like the injury had never happened. He blinked in surprise as he sat up and looked around. He was lying in a small shelter made of rough materials, covered in soft alien fabrics. The walls were made from some kind of plant material, sturdy yet flexible. The shelter was small but warm, and the air was surprisingly comfortable. There was a faint glow from the windows, which seemed to be made from transparent stone. Lyra was sitting on the other side of the room, her back to him. She was focused on something, but Ethan couldn't see what. She moved with a quiet grace, as if she belonged to this world. There was something calming about her presence. He took a deep breath and swung his legs over the side of the bed. His feet touched the cool ground, and he stood up slowly, testing his leg. It felt strong, no weakness or pain. He marveled at how quickly it had healed. "You're awake," Lyra said softly, turning around with a gentle smile. "How do you feel?" Ethan nodded, still in disbelief. I feel fine. You really fixed me. I don't know how, but I'm grateful." Lyra tilted her head slightly. Healing is not just about mending wounds. It's about more than that. It's about restoring harmony between the body and mind. Ethan frowned, not fully understanding. Harmony? She walked closer, her soft footsteps almost silent on the ground. "Yes, your body can heal itself, but sometimes it needs help to regain balance. The pain you felt wasn't just from the injury. It was also from your body being out of sync. When I heal, I help bring your body back to where it should be." Ethan took in her words, trying to make sense of them. He felt better than he had in days. Maybe she was telling the truth. "Thank you again," he said, still feeling like he owed her more than words could express. "You're welcome," she replied quietly. "But your healing is not finished. You may feel strong, but you must rest. It will take time for your body to fully adjust." Ethan looked at her, then glanced around the shelter. It was clear now that she wasn't just a healer. She was careful, thoughtful, and somehow, different from anything he had expected. In his military training, he had been taught to be wary of everything, especially when it came to aliens. But there was something about Lyra that made him feel safe, like he could trust her. Still, something felt off. She seemed too focused on him, too insistent on helping him. "I'll rest," Ethan said, sitting back down on the bed. "But what about you? You've helped me a lot. How do you stay? So calm?" Lyra smiled softly and sat beside him, her eyes meeting his. "Because healing others is a part of who I am. My people are healers, just as your people are soldiers. It is our way of life." Ethan thought about her words. "So, you've done this before? Healed other people?" "Yes," she said, nodding. "Many times, but every healing is different. Every person is different. I'm not just mending a body, connecting with someone on a deeper level." Ethan stared at her, confused. "What do you mean by that?" Lyra looked down at her hands for a moment, her fingers glowing faintly. "When I heal, I don't just fix wounds. I help a person reconnect with themselves, with their own strength. But sometimes the connection is stronger than expected. Sometimes it becomes a bond." Ethan's heart raced at her words. A bond. Was she saying that he was somehow tied to her now? He wanted to ask more, but before he could, she stood up. "We'll gather food for us," she said. "You need to rest." Ethan nodded, still processing everything she had said. Watched her leave the shelter, her figure disappearing into the trees outside. I sat there for a moment, alone with his thoughts. Something about Lyra bothered him. It wasn't just her healing abilities, though they were beyond anything he had ever seen. It was her presence. She had been there for him since he had first been injured, and now she was still here, watching over him. It felt like she was always around, always keeping an eye on him. And that made him uncomfortable. He lay back on the bed, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling in his chest. He needed answers. Couldn't just accept everything at face value. He had been taught to question everything, especially when it came to unfamiliar things. As the hours passed, Ethan's mind wandered. He thought about his mission, about his team. He wondered if they had been able to complete their objectives, or if they were still searching for him. He couldn't stay here forever. He had to find a way to contact them to report back. But how? His radio was still broken, and the planet was a maze of alien terrain. Lyra returned just before the sun began to set, carrying a bundle of food. It didn't look like anything Ethan had ever seen. Strange fruits and vegetables, some of them glowing faintly. She set the food down in front of him and smiled. "Eat," she said. "You need your strength." Ethan hesitated, unsure. "What is it?" "It is food from my world," she replied, not offering any further explanation. "It will give you strength." He took a bite, and to his surprise, it tasted good, fresh, sweet, and tangy. He ate without asking more questions, feeling the warmth and energy it gave him. Afterward, Lyra helped him to lie down again. As she sat beside him, her fingers brushed against his skin. A strange shiver ran through Ethan's body, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he looked into her eyes, searching for some kind of understanding. "Lyra," he began, his voice low. "I don't understand why you're helping me so much. Why me?" Lyra's gaze softened and she smiled. "'Cause you need help, and I am here to give it." Ethan wasn't sure if he believed her entirely, but for now, he didn't have the energy to question it further. He closed his eyes, letting the warmth of her presence comfort him, even as his mind continued to spin with uncertainty. Ethan had hoped that with the healing, the strange tension between him and Lyra would fade. But it didn't. In fact, the more time he spent with her, the more unsettled he felt. Every day, Lyra stayed by his side, always ready to tend to him, always asking how he felt, always making sure he had enough food, water, and rest. It was kind, but it was also suffocating. Each morning, she would wake him with a soft touch, her gentle hands brushing against his forehead as she checked for any signs of pain or discomfort. It was soothing, but it also made Ethan feel like he wasn't in control of his own body anymore. There was something about her presence that felt too persistent. He had tried to get up on his own once or twice, hoping to stretch his legs and get some fresh air. But each time, Lyra was there, always watching him, always making sure he didn't do too much. "You should rest," she would say, her voice so calm, so gentle, that he found it hard to argue. And so, he would sit back down, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and frustration. But it wasn't just her constant care that bothered him. It was the way she looked at him, those glowing eyes always focused on him as if she could see through him. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was studying him, trying to understand something he didn't even know about himself. One evening, as they sat outside the shelter, Lyra handed him a strange fruit. It was bright purple, with tiny glowing specks, and when he bit into it, the sweet juice dripped down his chin. It was delicious, but as he chewed, he noticed her eyes never left him. She wasn't eating, just watching him closely, her face unreadable. "Why? Aren't you eating?" Ethan asked, wiping his chin. Lyra didn't answer at first. She simply smiled softly. "I'm not hungry." Ethan felt the need to push to ask more. "Why are you really helping me? You've already healed me, and you've done more for me than anyone ever has." "Why stay?" She paused, her gaze never wavering from his. "Because I want to," she said simply, as though that explained everything. The answer didn't sit well with Ethan. He wanted to believe her, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to her actions. Something hidden beneath the surface that she wasn't telling him. The next day, as he sat on a rock near the shelter, watching the two suns sink lower in the sky, Ethan couldn't help but think about his mission. He had been sent here with a team that was probably still searching for him, trying to find out what had happened. He should have been out there with them, finishing the mission. But instead, here he was, stuck in an alien world, healing. Under the watchful eye of someone he barely knew, he stood up and took a few steps toward the edge of the clearing. The air was crisp and clean, and for a moment he felt like he could breathe again. But before he could take another step, he heard Lyra's soft voice behind him. "Where are you going?" Ethan froze, his heart pounding. He hadn't expected her to be so close. She must have been watching him the whole time. I just need some space," he said, trying to keep his tone casual. Lyra took a step closer, her eyes filled with concern. "You shouldn't go far. You're still recovering," Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm fine. I can handle myself." Lyra's expression didn't change, but there was a quiet intensity in her gaze. "I can't let you hurt yourself again," she said softly. "But after everything we've been through." Ethan turned to face her, feeling a mixture of frustration and confusion. "You're treating me like I'm fragile." "Not fragile. I'm a soldier. I can handle a little pain. Can handle being alone." She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, her presence almost overwhelming. Her voice when she spoke was quiet, yet there was an undeniable strength behind it. "Sometimes it's not about handling the pain," she said. "Sometimes it's about knowing when to stop. You don't have to do everything on your own." Her words struck something deep inside Ethan. He wasn't sure what it was, but it made him feel vulnerable, like she was seeing something he hadn't even noticed about himself. He took a step back, away from her, not out of anger, but because her words were hitting too close to home. "I don't need someone to watch over me," he said, his voice tight. "I'm used to being on my own." Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable.
I know about this. Sometimes everyone needs help.
Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but the words caught in his throat. He was about to say something else when he saw the way Lyra was looking at him, those glowing eyes, so full of concern and something else. It was a look he hadn't seen in a long time, a look that made him feel ... exposed. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken tension. Finally, Lyra took a step back, her face softening. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I don't mean to make you uncomfortable. I just want to help." Ethan wasn't sure what to say to that. He wanted to tell her that he didn't need her help, that he didn't want to be dependent on anyone. But he knew it wasn't that simple. Something inside him had shifted since she had healed him. Something deep down made him feel like he couldn't walk away from her, like he couldn't leave. "I know you do," he said, his voice softer now. I need some time to figure things out." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "Take all the time you need, Ethan. I will be here when you're ready." As she walked away, Ethan sat down on the rock again, staring out into the alien landscape. The sun was almost gone now, and the stars were beginning to twinkle overhead. But despite the peacefulness of the moment, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was caught between two worlds. One where he was a soldier, strong and independent, and one where he was being pulled into something far more complicated. And the more he resisted, the more he realized that Lyra wasn't going anywhere. She would always be there, watching, waiting. And no matter how hard he tried, he wasn't sure he could ever truly escape her. The days seemed to blur together as Ethan spent more time with Lyra. He had tried to resist her help, tried to tell himself he was strong enough to be on his own, but the truth was, Lyra had already become a part of his life. Whether he wanted it or not, she was always there, always watching, always healing. Every morning, she would check on him, making sure he was eating enough, making sure he wasn't overexerting himself. And each time, he felt like she was more than just a healer. There was something deeper, something that lingered between them. Something he didn't fully understand, but the more he tried to push her away, the more persistent she became. It wasn't just her healing touch anymore, it was her presence. It was her quiet smile, the way she always seemed to be nearby, ready to take care of him. And despite the discomfort he felt, he couldn't deny that he had begun to rely on her one evening. As the two of them sat outside the shelter watching the sunset, Ethan finally decided it was time to get answers. His mind had been racing, trying to understand why Lyra was so determined to help him. He couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine when it wasn't. Lyra sat beside him, her eyes focused on the horizon. Her face was calm, serene even, but Ethan could sense something deeper. Something was hidden behind that quiet expression. "You've been avoiding my questions," Ethan said suddenly, turning to her. "You've been healing me, taking care of me, but you haven't told me everything. Why? Why are you doing this?" Lyra didn't turn to face him immediately. Instead, she stared out at the fading light, her fingers lightly tracing the edges of the fabric she wore. For a long moment, she said nothing, as if she were gathering her thoughts. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and calm. "I knew you would. Ask eventually." Ethan's patience was running thin, but he tried to keep his voice steady. "I need to know, Lyra. Why are you here? Why have you been staying with me all this time? You don't even know me." Lyra turned to face him, her eyes meeting his with a quiet intensity. "I wasn't always like this," she said. "I wasn't always the healer you see now. My people, my kind, we were once warriors. We fought battles for survival, but our people's way of life changed a long time ago. Healing became our true calling." Ethan listened carefully, trying to make sense of her words. "But what does that have to do with me?" "I'm getting to that," Lyra replied softly. "I come from a long line of healers, but each healer has a unique gift. Some heal with their hands, some with their minds. And some of us, like me, are born with the ability to form deep connections with others, connections that go beyond the physical, connections that tie us together, mind, body, and soul." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of connection?" Lyra hesitated for a moment, then met his eyes again. "A bond. It's not something I can control. It's something that happens when I heal someone. When I heal, I don't just fix the body. I fix the spirit. And in doing so, I become connected to them." Ethan's heart raced. "You're saying that you're connected to me? Like forever?" She nodded, her expression serious. "Yes. It's a bond that forms between the healer and the one being healed.
Ow.
The stronger the healing, the stronger the connection. I didn't choose it, Ethan. It just happened." Ethan sat in stunned silence, the weight of her words sinking in. He had suspected something was different about their relationship, but he hadn't understood how deep it really went. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" Ethan asked, his voice strained. "Why didn't you warn me?" "I didn't know how," Lyra said quietly. "At first, I thought it was just a normal healing, thought it would pass, but it didn't. The connection grew stronger with each day, and I realized eventually that you were a part of me now, in ways I didn't understand." Ethan felt a knot form in his stomach. He had been healing, yes. But so had Lyra. She had been healing herself as much as she had been healing him. It wasn't just his body that had been mended, it was his soul. His mind, and in doing so, she had unknowingly bound herself to him. "I don't know what to do with this," Ethan whispered, more to himself than to her. "I don't know how to handle it." Lyra reached out, placing her hand gently on his. "You don't have to handle it alone, Ethan. That's what I've been trying to tell you. You're not alone anymore." Ethan looked at her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch seep through him. He wanted to pull away, to tell her that he couldn't let this happen, that he couldn't be tied to someone like this. But deep down, he knew it was too late. The bond had already been formed. "I didn't ask for this," he said softly.
"I
"Didn't ask for any of it." "I know," Lyra replied, her voice filled with understanding. "Neither of us asked for this. But sometimes things happen that we can't control. All we can do is accept them and move forward." Ethan looked into her eyes, seeing the pain there. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about her, too. She had been healing him for her own reasons, reasons she hadn't fully understood herself. But now she had shared her truth with him. Now they both had to face the reality of the bond they had created. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They simply sat there, side by side, feeling the weight of their connection. Ethan didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew that he couldn't walk away from it. He'd already made the choice by allowing Lyra to heal him, The bond was already there, and there was no turning back. He turned to her, his voice barely above a whisper. "What now?" Lyra smiled softly, the glow in her eyes softening. "Now we learn to live with it." Ethan sat quietly for a long time, his mind racing with the truth Lyra had revealed. He could still feel the warmth of her hand on his, the soft energy that had flowed through him during the healing. The bond between them wasn't something he could easily ignore no matter how much he wanted to. It was a part of him now, and somehow it was starting to feel impossible to separate himself from it. Lyra's words echoed in his mind. "You're not alone anymore." The thought should have comforted him. In the past, he'd often felt isolated, always out on missions, always alone in the dark corners of space. But now, he wasn't alone. But that thought only made him feel more trapped. Every moment he spent with her, every soft touch, every caring gesture, made him feel like he was being pulled deeper into something he didn't fully understand. It wasn't that he didn't care about Lyra. He did, more than he cared to admit. She had saved his life, healed him in ways he never thought possible, and now he couldn't imagine being without her. But there was something about the way she hovered over him, the way she constantly checked on him, that made him feel like he was losing himself. He stood up, pacing around the small shelter. The walls felt like they were closing in on him. He needed space. He needed to think. As he stepped outside, the cool air hit him, and he breathed deeply, trying to clear his head. The alien landscape stretched out before him, rocky cliffs, strange trees, and a sky that was starting to shift from the vibrant purple to a dark blue. He felt the weight of the bond between him and Lyra more strongly than ever. It wasn't just her presence that filled the space. It was the feeling of being connected to her, in ways he couldn't escape. Lyra appeared behind him, her steps silent, as always. She had a way of appearing out of nowhere, always watching, always close by. Ethan didn't turn to look at her. He didn't know if he could face her right now. "You've been quiet," Lyra said softly. "Is something wrong?" Ethan didn't know how to explain the mess of emotions inside him. He was angry at himself for letting the connection between them grow, and he was confused by the strange pull he felt every time she was near. It was like he couldn't escape it, no matter how much he tried to push her away. "I don't know what to feel anymore," he said quietly, his voice strained. "I don't know what this bond means. It feels like you're everywhere I go, even when I don't want you to be." Lyra stepped closer, her expression filled with concern. "Ethan, I don't want to overwhelm you. I never meant to make you feel trapped. I'm here because I want to help, not because I want to control you. But that's what it feels like," Ethan said, turning to face her. "You're always here, always checking on me, always making sure I'm okay. Like I can't do anything without you being right there." Lyra's face softened. "I understand. But the connection we share, the bond, it's not something I can turn off. It's part of who I am now. I didn't ask for it, but I can't ignore it. Just like you can't ignore it." Ethan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Oh, I didn't ask for it either, Lyra. I didn't ask for you to heal me. I didn't ask to become ... this." He gestured between them, the unspoken bond hanging heavily in the air. "I don't know how to deal with it." Lyra looked down for a moment, her eyes filled with something that almost seemed like sadness. "I know it's hard.
Right.
It's hard for me too. But I can't leave you, Ethan. Not now." The words hit him harder than he expected. He had thought, maybe, that he could push her away, that he could somehow shake the connection between them and regain control of his own life. But hearing her say that she couldn't leave made him realize just how deep this bond really was. It wasn't something he could walk away from even. If he tried, "I never wanted to hurt you," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "I never wanted to make you feel like this. But healing you, being close to you, it became more than just a duty. It became something I didn't understand at first. But now, I can't turn it off. I can't stop caring." Ethan took a step back, his heart pounding in his chest. "Ah! What if I don't want you to care?" The words slipped out before he could stop them, and as soon as he said them, he regretted it. He didn't want to hurt her, but the frustration inside him had been building for so long that it all came rushing out at once. Lyra looked at him, eyes wide, as if his words had cut deeper than she had expected. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, She nodded slowly, as if accepting something he hadn't meant to say. I understand. She said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. I'll give you space. I'll stop pushing you. Ethan felt a pang of guilt in his chest. He hadn't meant for it to go this far. He hadn't wanted to hurt her. But the more he tried to distance himself, the more he realized how much he cared. It wasn't just the bond. It was her. Lyra had become a part of his life, and no matter how much he tried to fight it, he couldn't undo that. I'm sorry, he said, his voice softer now. I didn't mean it like that. I just... I don't know how to deal with all of this. Took a deep breath, her eyes searching his face. I know. And I'm sorry for making it so hard. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt like he could breathe. The weight of the bond, the confusion, the frustration, it was all still there. But for a moment, the air between them felt lighter. I don't know what comes next, Ethan said quietly, his eyes meeting hers. But we'll figure it out. Right? Lyra smiled, the warmth in her expression returning. Yes, we will. Together. The days that followed were different. Ethan and Lyra had settled into an unspoken understanding. She no longer hovered over him as she once did. She still cared for him, still checked in on him, but she gave him the space he had asked for. Spent their time in silence, but there was no tension. It was the quiet before a storm, an understanding that things weren't easy, but that they were both trying. Ethan had gotten used to the idea of the bond. It was there, a silent force between them, always present, always tugging at the edges of his mind. Every time he saw Lyra, every time their hands brushed, he felt it. He couldn't run from it anymore. But there were still moments when he wasn't sure how to handle it. Moments when the connection between them felt too strong, too deep. One morning, as the sun rose over the alien landscape, Ethan stood by the edge of their shelter, watching the light spread across the horizon. He had been thinking a lot lately about the mission he had been sent on, about his team, and about what came next. He had hoped that the quiet would give him clarity, but all it did was make him feel more uncertain. Lyra joined him silently, standing beside him without saying a word. They both stared at the sky, the golden light casting long shadows over the rocky landscape. It was beautiful here, peaceful. But Ethan knew it wouldn't last. It couldn't stay here forever. I've been thinking, Ethan said while his voice breaking the silence, about everything. Lyra glanced at him, her expression unreadable. What about it? About the bond, he said, his voice quieter now, about what we've been through and what happens next. Lyra's eyes softened and she nodded. I know, I've been thinking about it too. Ethan took a deep breath, turning to face her. I can't stay here, Lyra. I can't live like this, with the bond between us always pulling at me. I have a life, a mission. My team is still out there, and I need to get back to them. Lyra looked at him for a long time, her gaze filled with an understanding that made Ethan's heart ache. She wasn't angry, she wasn't upset, but he could see the sadness in her eyes. The sadness that matched the weight in his chest. No, she said softly. I knew you would say that eventually. Ethan took her hands in his, holding them gently. You've done so much for me. You saved my life. I can't forget that, Lyra. I can't just walk away from what we've shared. But I don't know how to live with the bond. Not like this. Not when it feels like it's controlling everything. Lyra's expression faltered for a moment, and she stepped back slightly. You think I've been controlling you? Ethan said quickly, his voice soft. It's not that. It's just... I can't help feeling like I'm losing myself, like I'm not the person I was before. Lyra's eyes filled with a deep sadness, but she nodded. I understand. It's not easy, Ethan. I know it's not. There was a long pause between them. Ethan could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Lyra, too. He had never imagined that a bond like this could form, that something so deep and so real could happen so suddenly. But it had. And now he had to choose. I've been thinking about it a lot, Ethan said, his voice steady. Up my mind? I can't stay here. I have to go back to my mission, to my team. I have to finish what I started. Lyra nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. She didn't argue. She didn't try to stop him. She just looked at him as if she understood the choice he was making, even if it hurt. "You should go then," she said quietly. "I won't stop you." Ethan felt a pang of guilt in his chest. He didn't want to hurt her. He didn't want to walk away from her. But he knew that if he stayed, the bond between them would only grow stronger, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of life. He wasn't sure if he could be what she needed him to be. "I'll never forget what you did for me," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved my life, and I'll always be grateful for that." Lyra smiled softly, the sadness still in her eyes. "I don't need your gratitude, Ethan. I did what I had to do, what we both needed." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He wasn't sure if he believed them, but it didn't matter. What mattered was the choice he had made. I had to go. He had to leave. "Goodbye, Lyra," he said softly, turning to leave. Lyra didn't try to stop him. She didn't reach out to hold him back. She simply stood there, watching him, her expression a mix of sadness and understanding. As Ethan walked away, he felt the bond tugging at him, but he didn't turn back. He had made his choice. And now he had to live with it. The alien world stretched out before him, and for the first time in days, Ethan felt a sense of freedom. But as he walked away from Lyra, a part of him couldn't help but wonder if he was making a mistake. Could he really leave her behind? Could he walk away from the connection that had changed everything? He didn't know. But for now, he had to keep moving forward. He had a mission to finish, and that was what mattered.